Hi everyone, Turner Burner here with another video for you guys. I'm going to go over my solo run, my 50th solo run, which was Clayton solo on the split. It was it was a pretty tough one for me. It took a long time to get it done, but I'm glad I was persistent and eventually saw it all the way through. But yeah, let's get right into it. This is probably, I'm anticipating it's probably going to be one of the longer explanation videos because just the video itself is 18 minutes, so just be prepared for that. So hopefully you got some popcorn, you got something to eat. But yeah, long story short, let's get right into it. So on this, for this one, I was running Bait Armor, Serrated Edge. I believe I was running Heavy Capacity, Soul Survivor, and Heavy Shell. I believe that's what I was running in this game. When right out the pod, which we're going to deal with first, is 2 Deadeyes. Their spawns are slightly different every single time, so just be wary of that. When they backpedal like that, that's more ideal. So one thing the Deadeyes will do in this situation when you're at this doorway relative to where they spawn, they will either do a robot walk towards you, and when they're doing that, they're usually charging their M-bar and they're about to shoot at you. If they are doing that, if they're charging their M-bar, do not rush the Deadeyes. You do not want to rush a Deadeye when they're charging the M-bar, because if they're charging the M-bar, no matter if it's a half a second or a millisecond, as soon as they charge it, they are going to shoot you, and it's going to auto-aim freeze you, and it's going to instantly end the game. When they shoot you, then melee you. So just be wary when they do that walk towards you. And that goes for regardless of where you're at in the map. If they're walking towards you and they are charging their M-bar, just hide behind something until they're done, until they get that shot off. So what I do here is I use my pistol ammo to try to take out one of the Deadeyes, because one Deadeye is infinitely easier than 2. So I do that, and I keep note of where the M-bar is located, because I'm going to use that for the remaining enemies. So here's what I'm talking about. You see how he's rushing towards me? I back up, and then I execute him. So you only want to rush the Deadeyes when they are not charging. That's the best time to do it. So my ult is charged, so my next step is to trigger all the drones. I believe it's 3 drones and 2 Deadeyes, if I'm not mistaken. In a perfect world, I can get them all in one ultimate. So that's obviously what I'm going for. So I try to time it. When it comes down to drones and Deadeyes, you want to make sure they're kind of in a set position, because if they're walking around trying to find a solid cover to shoot at you, they are less likely to be relevant in your ultimate. So you want to make sure they all stop moving and they're all ready to shoot at you. And that way, when you use your ultimate, they're all ready to hit you. So as you can see, all the drones and Deadeyes have stopped moving. They're in position. And I believe I can get them. I get them all in this one. No, I get all but 1 drone. And there's a box in the way here that I was hitting. So just be mindful of that when you're doing the split, to not hit any of these boxes in the middle. They look like they're not in the way, but they're in the way. So a drone gets killed in 2 active M-bar shots, and then that's it. So in this next portion, you can deal with either 3 rejects or 5 juvies. As Clayton, since I'm running Bait Armor, I use the Venom as as assistance to kill these juvies, because I don't have any ammo. And trying to melee a bunch of juvies is never a good idea. So Bait Armor basically gives, since it's level 6, it's really good, but it basically, you get initial damage and then the subsequent damage is less and less. So it allows me to be in Venom for a very, very long time. The only reason I pop my ult here is because if a juvie were to hit me and I'm in Venom, it probably would kill me. So I only pop ult to maintain immortality and get out of that situation. So when you're trying to solo this map, you basically have 2 choices. when it comes down to before the safe room or after the safe room. Okay, so the right side has more weapons and the left side has venom fans. When it comes down to a map like the Split, if you were to go for the side, and this goes for before and after the safe room, if you go for the side that has no venom fans, you have to do a lot of work in a short period of time in order to get to the next section. And it's actually very, very difficult to do. It's doable, but it's much more difficult than if you have, less weapons or less ammo, but you have more time. So that's something I've discovered when doing the Split, where going the side, regardless of what character you pick, because I'm working on a character right now for this map, regardless of what character you pick, it's probably best to go the side with the venom fans. That way you have more time to get more kills with the, whether it's meat shielding or whatever. Because every venom fan, I believe, off the top of my head, gives you about 60 seconds. I'll correct myself later if that's wrong. So if you get an extra minute to get kills, that can only, better serve you. So on the right side, there is torque bow, which is, I've serrated edge on, so that's very, very useful. There's torque bow, there's nades. I only use nades, just because it does extra damage as opposed to flashes. So I get all the torque bow, and then I go down to the Guardian section, which is, past the other supply room. So here's another supply room. When you go, so if I were to go up through the door in the other supply room, that would lead to the area where there's no venom fans, but there's more weapons and more enemies to kill. At least I would say there's more enemies to kill. And it's not as easy of a game, or not as smooth of a game as this way. And also keep in mind that other side has juvies. Because, in the beginning, it was either going to be juvies or rejects. So the other side is going to have juvies. And they're almost impossible to deal with unless you're a melee character. So it's best to avoid juvie encounters if you can. So this side has not only the med bay, but 3 venom fans, which is going to help me get more time and get kills. So I'm going to pull this venom fan. This is the first one. This one gives me an extra, it's actually 45 seconds, excuse me. So I try to get the Guardian to shoot me, but for some reason he's shooting a wall. And that's something you also have to be aware of, that sometimes when you're in your ultimate as Clayton, they decide to miss for no reason. So here's a critical moment right here. So the door's wide open, which means a Guardian in theory should be able to just fly through. And also, obviously, the Deadeyes and the drones can walk through. But in my tests on this map, and it was a lot of tests, every time I was in this position, the Guardian just stayed at the front door. The only time they were pulled into the supply room is when I got close to it, either in the supply room or out of it. If I got close to it, they came in, but when I was in this position, they never came in. And one thing I also want to touch on, and because I don't want to mention it every single time in this video, so there's a glitch with Clayton where if he's holding a torque bow, so basically in Horde, Clayton has bleeding barriers, right? So if Clayton buys barriers and he's holding a torque bow and he has this serrated edge card equipped, they will bleed. So this concept also works with shot grenades, frags, and it also works with Clayton's ultimate. If I were to active my torque bow and I use my my reflex shredder, I'm going to get more bleed now because the bleed from the serrated edge is working and the reflex shredder. So without getting too technical with the numbers, that's something you'll see here that I'm going to use to my advantage in this game. So you'll see shot grenades bleeding out. You'll see frags, things of that nature. So I'm going to mention that now. That way you can understand each subsequent situation after that. So the Guardian is just that the little bit of the Guardian just stays at the front of the door for some reason. I try to do a frag, bleed him a little bit with the frag, but I miss, unfortunately. So me being in this position is going to funnel in a bunch of Deadeyes, drones, and that's it, Deadeyes and drones. So once my ultimate's ready, I should be able to use my ult on all of them. And this is a position I want to be in just to get, a bunch of them at once. I believe there's 5 drones and roughly 4 to 5 dead eyes in this section, plus the Guardian. So I use my ultimate as I get close to the Guardian, see how he funnels in, and then I just, lock him in the supply room, and that Guardian is just out of the game instantly. So there's going to be some drones and some dead eyes, and I'm just going to use torque bow to kill these guys. If you are going to try this as Clayton, I believe he needs to be maxed. My Clayton's maxed, and I had a hard time doing it, so I couldn't imagine if he wasn't maxed and, serrated edge, wasn't level 6, things of that nature. But yeah. So I just use torque bow. It's going to bleed out a drone instantly. 40% bleed is really, really nice. So it gets me another 45 seconds on the Venom fan. So I'm ahead of the Venom. And I just check my corners to make sure there's no drones or dead eyes. I don't always keep count of how many enemies I kill. So I was just, just check corners. It's just smarter. So here's one thing I want to touch on when you're dealing with solo runs and ultimate timing. So I have my ult ready right now, but I'm also low on ammo. And this may sound basic and obvious, but I do want to touch on this. So when you're dealing with Clayton, right? So you get your ultimate every 52, 53 seconds by just existing. When you're doing solo runs with Clayton, it actually ends up translating to somewhere between closer to 30 seconds and 52 seconds because you're doing like damage as well. So you end up getting it quite often, and you get yourself out of a lot of hairy situations because of it. But when you're short for time, which is basically every solo run you're in, you need to use your ultimate as often as possible. In general, when it comes down to these solo runs, you want to use your ultimate as often as possible, but more so at Clayton because that's why it's even possible. If he didn't have Soul Survivor, he wouldn't be able to do much of anything in these escape solo runs. So right now I'm low on torque bow and I'm low on M-bar. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my ultimate first, and then as it's charging, I'm going to load up on torque bow and M-bar. That may sound basic, it may sound small, but every second counts. So I want to take advantage of every single moment because when it comes down to these runs, a lot of these situations are hard to recreate. So when it comes down to basic decisions, you want to make those basic decisions correctly. That way they lead to a smoother game. So I'm holding a torque bow out to get more bleed on my reflex shredder. So the goal is always to get 2 Guardians at once. If you can do that, that's going to make this section a lot easier. And his ultimate's not very long, so basically as soon as you start, you want to head back. And I was able to get 2 Guardians in 1. So I shut the door because I don't want to be rushed this time because there's DR1s. So now I get my ammo as it's charging to make it concurrent with my ultimate charging. So it's just little details like that to lead to better games. So my ultimate's still charging. I'm getting all the ammo I need for my M-bar and torque bow. I even pull the med bay while my ult's charging because, that pull is like, I don't know, 2 seconds or something like that. Those little things add up. So now that I've filled up all my ammo, I'm able to use my ult here again in a second. So basically, when it comes down to this section, it's basically rinse and repeat. You want to use your ult and some torque bow, and then fall back and shut the door. Use your ult, fall back, things of that nature. So once the Guardians are dead, everything else is pretty straightforward. The drones, the dead eyes, they pretty much always shoot at you. And then I use my torque bow on this DR1. Usually only takes 2 torque bow shots, and then they bleed out. So the DR1s, they can be a problem, and you'll see that at the end of the game. Like sometimes they take up too much space, they move slow, but yeah, you'll see that at the end of the game. So I keep my torque bow out just in case I need it, and then I shut the door. I see if there's anything left in this room I need to get, and there's not. So I active my torque before going out there. Then I just bolt to the safe room and try to get as many enemies as I can. That drone was AFK, but he's dead now. So I just hide behind this wall. They never rushed me in the attempts I've done, like no dead eyes or drones when I was behind this wall. So, and what you want to do is be careful that no dead eyes, aiming at you when you open the lever, because I've been frozen at the button before. So you don't want to close the door immediately, because you want to start the next the next portion with your ultimate ready. You don't want to have to waste any time charging it because of what's required. If you've seen this video, what's required after the safe room. So now that the ultimate's ready, then I shut the door. So right now you'll see me kind of linger a little bit in this area. Now, what I was doing and what I have been doing in a lot of my solo runs that are a little bit more trickier at the end, I've been trying to figure out consistently when or how long does it take after the safe room before the doors start closing. That was useful on the end. It was useful on my recent solo on Ice Queen. It's a strategy that you can use because there's going to be situations to where enemies that have no benefit to be at the LZ prematurely, they can wait in an area, and then when the doors are shutting, then you can bolt to the LZ. So this strategy can be effective to pull enemies into the hive away from the LZ while you sneakily go back or go to the LZ unscathed. And those are ways to win matches. And this is a strategy I was trying to do in this game that kind of blew up in my face, but it was a strategy I was trying to do. So in this map, it takes 7 minutes and 12 seconds if you pull all, let me think, all the fans. I believe it's 2. If you pull both fans and the med bay as well, you get 7 minutes and 12 seconds. So the doors will start closing. So I'm writing down on my notepad to my left as I'm doing this because I'm a escape nerd that it takes 7 minutes and 12 seconds. So 13:54 I have in the back of my head is when the doors start closing. So it's just something I just like to do. It just works better for me. So in this section, there is DR1s on both sides, and there's also there's elite drones on both sides, and there's also some dead eyes on both sides. I need to get to the Venom fan area. So my best advice if you get to this section is to bolt all the way to the left, and at the last second when you're about to take damage, you want to pop your ult, and you're going to try to take as many enemies with you when you do that. Now, when you go all the way to your left, every enemy from both sides starts rushing you, all the enemies that you don't kill. And it's up to you using your torque bow skills, your frag skills, and your ultimate skills to weather the storm. So you'll just see how I do that. So my torque bow's out to maximize my bleed. I pop my ult now to try to get DR1s, elite drones, things of that nature. I plant this frag because I get frag bleed because of the glitch. And then at this point, my ult's charging a little bit. So I get the frag bleed on the DR1. I'm already at over half again. So now I'm just going to torpedo this guy to help charge my ult and also kill him in the process. My ult's almost here again. I throw a flag to get frag bleed when my torpedo's out. Now my ult's ready again, so I rush back out there with my ultimate. That way I don't deal with everything when they come in. So I try to get as many elite drones as I can. I think I only get 1 there. Torpedo's still out. There's a dead eye that I almost got frozen by in the distance that I was able to get, so I'm happy about that. So basically this portion, all you need to do is weather the storm. You see something, you torque it, you try to use your ultimate, M-bar if you need to, because they're all just going to keep rushing in there. Sometimes there's some straggling, not so much elite drones, but there's some straggling dead eyes for some reason, which is super annoying because they take time to get, but it is what it is. So right now there's still a dead eye alive, but I'm getting ready for the sentinels. So remember I told you that when he's holding a torque bow, he gets extra bleed. So When Clayton, in this context, I'm going to have my shock grenades work as bleed. Anytime, and there was a few times it didn't work out, but when the elite drones die, it's not like most of the time, but there was 5 of them. So I was banking on the odds that one of them would drop a shock grenade. So when elite drones die, they sometimes leave shock grenades. So there's 5 elite drones. You have to be very unlucky for none of them to drop shock grenades. But long story short, about 2 or 3 of them drop shock grenades. So this was actually a good output. So I'm going to use my shock grenades as bleed combined with my torque bow. That's how I'm going to take care of 2 sentinels. There's 2 entrances that the sentinels kind of get hung up at, and I'm going to plant shocks at both of those entrances. So, but I'll also have to take care of the Deadeye, because if the Deadeye triggers the shock grenade, it kind of messes everything up. So I have to kill the Deadeye before I trigger the sentinels. So this is one entrance. The other entrance is the one I walk through, and you'll see here in a second. So I plant shocks from both of them. In conjunction, I still have my ultimate, and I still have torque bow. All these are weapons I'm going to use to take down the sentinels. So I plant a shock there, and here's the other entrance, as you can see right in front of you. I grabbed the red box before planting the shock. That way I have shock after, as opposed to just planting the shock, then grabbing a red box, and then have flash. So I headshot the Deadeye. And then I also come out here to double check if there's any more shocks or if there's any more Deadeyes, and there wasn't. So right now I have my ultimate, and I'm just going to rush and get this Venom Fan. Sometimes these sentinels are triggered by me doing this, but this time they weren't. So I cross that little barrier as you see here, then I just run, because that should trigger both sentinels. So one sentinel's behind the other in this angle, so I just start torquing. So as you can see, I was able to get rid of the shield, and the first sentinel's at half health. I try to time it right, that way I don't waste it as far as my ultimate's concerned, and that worked out pretty quickly. So right now I'm getting torque bow bleed and shock grenade bleed on this sentinel, and he's just getting melted pretty quickly here. So, you know, that's a strategy you can use in Escape or Horde if you want to. I'm usually not big on glitches, but this map, you know, the things that happen in this map, it deserved it. But so what you want to do is there's 3 elite drones and 2 Deadeyes across here. So you can torque bow them first, or you can just pull the elevator first. It depends on how you want to do it. But I was able to kill 2 elite drones right off the bat and 1 Deadeye, which leaves 1 elite drone and 1 Deadeye remaining. So I believe I used my shock grenade to bleed out that elite drone. And I was trying to also get the Deadeye, but that didn't work. So I was able to bleed out the elite drone with my shock grenade. And I believe it takes... I don't actually never counted for this map, but typically the elevators take a minute. This one could be shorter. I don't remember, but that's not something I paid attention to too closely, to be honest. So there's 2 Deadeyes remaining. Excuse me. There's 3 elite drones and 3 Deadeyes in this section. Last time I did an attempt on this map, it was the attempt before this one. I tried to melee triple combo a Deadeye, and they did like a 180 swing, and I got down. And I was so frustrated that I told myself the next time I get in that situation, I'm just going to use my ultimate on the Deadeyes, even though there's only 2, just because, you know, I get my ultimate faster or fast, and it's safer to do because I know I'm going to survive the situation. But yeah, for these Deadeyes, they can't be trusted. Sometimes the triple combo works, sometimes it doesn't. So I have my ultimate. I literally wait for one of them to start aiming at me. I get one that way, and I use my triple combo on this one while I'm in my ultimate. So here's the next thing right here. Pulling the med bay. So the med bay. So in my attempts, I would say the med bay works 20% of the time, roughly. But it only works if the med bay area is not completely covered in thick venom. Now that's kind of like relative, but that's basically the best way I can explain it. If the medbay area is not covered in thick venom, or you're like ahead of the venom and you pull the medbay, it allows you to respawn there. So that's something that will come in handy for me later in this video. Even though, it is what it is. Medbay is basically the Coalition's way of saying, hey, we don't need Iron Man, but we're going to have it anyway. But if the medbay worked all the time, I honestly wouldn't mind it as a substitute for Iron Man. But because it's so finicky, and even the placement of these medbays aren't really all that ideal, but it's fine. It worked out in this game, which I'm pleased with. So you want to always pull the medbay because you never know when you're going to need it. It may not work, it might work, but because it might work at all at least once, you want to definitely pull it because it couldn't hurt. And always pull every Venom fan. Clayton has no Bennett. Well, sometimes he does, depending on the context, but you want more time before the doors close. That's where you're pulling the Venom fan. So remember, it still closes at 13:54, so I have 2.5 minutes roughly before the doors start closing on their own. So my current plan right now, even though it doesn't go that way at all, my current strategy is going down to that bottom supply room. So I'm going to use my ult to get to that supply room. Then I'm going to get everything in that supply room, whether it's M-bar, torpedo, shock grenades, whatever. I'm going to plant shocks in that supply room because it'll allow me to charge my ult and bleed out the sentinels. I'm getting ahead of myself. I want to trap both sentinels. I either want to kill the sentinels or trap them both in that supply room. Whatever works is whatever works. And besides this attempt, I was having very much consistent success doing one or the other, whether it was killing or trapping the sentinels. And I was able to use the shock grenade, or the torpo holding glitch to charge my ult by bleeding out those sentinels. So it depended on the context. Sometimes I trap both of them. Sometimes I use my ultimate on both of them. It just depends. But regardless, one of those typically happen. In this game, it doesn't, and I had to adjust. But it worked out nonetheless. So ideally, I trap both sentinels, and then I actually hang in that bottom area. That bottom area, for some reason, I take little to no venom damage. So what my strategy is when I close the door and I'm killing the sentinel or killing the DR1s that hop down the ladder as the sentinels are trapped, once the doors start closing, then I rush to the LZ using my ultimate and beta armor to survive the DR1s, the juvies, the rejects, depending on the context. It never manifested, and I had to adjust, but that was my plan. That way I can get to the LZ with not a lot of enemies at the LZ. This plan was close to working out one other time, but I waited a little too long to go towards the LZ, and I underestimated how things could get in my way. But so I calculated the exact moment I wanted to go to the LZ, which is roughly 5 seconds after the doors start closing, as opposed to in my previous attempt, I did 10 seconds, and that was not enough, so an extra 5 seconds was going to help me. But yeah, I'm rambling. Basically, timing in terms of knowing when doors close, knowing when enemies are going to spawn, if they're venom triggers, if they're time triggers, whatever. Just paying attention to those details. It may seem overly analytical, but it also helps you, improve, whether it is solo runs or otherwise. So, mind you, 13:54 is when the doors start closing. So right now, I have Torpo in hand to get extra bleed. My ult's about 10 seconds from being ready. I think one of the Deadeyes saw me, which is kind of annoying, but that's okay. So I use my ult to just survive and hopefully get a few elite drones, but I don't think I get any here, which is annoying. But going to that area triggers the sentinels, and they're going to come down. I planted a shock grenade because you never know. Maybe I can get lucky and bleed out a sentinel from that shock grenade. And so as my ult's charging, I'm going to get all the boxes. And I'm actually going to, my theory is to plant the shocks in this area for the sentinels to bleed them out. But again, never panned out. Right now, I don't know what's dying out there, but it's the elite drone. I found out, in the kill feed. So that works. So I get a shock, and then I get the red box. Same thing as before. You want shocks, shock grenade or frag grenade, bleed because of the glitch. Helps charge your ult. So I acted my torque bow to get extra bleed. So I kill one sentinel, but one sentinel gets stuck there, which I was not anticipating to happen, and I just die right here, which is so frustrating. So I spawn into med bay. So here's something else I wanted to touch on with these solo runs. When it comes down to, so in every solo run, I don't know how many of you actually do them, but when it comes down to a lot of these, I can't stress this enough. They're really not supposed to, you're not supposed to be able to do any of these highs by yourself, in theory. Some characters are strong enough and some players are solid enough to make it work. But in theory, they're supposed to be done by 3 people. So when it comes down to having a strategy for solo runs, some solo runs are easier than others. You can't get overly frazzled when your plan just kind of dissolves. Because, you have a theory, you have a strategy, and then once it kind of like maybe an enemy triggers too soon, maybe you thought an enemy was a time trigger and it actually is a venom trigger, which is slightly different. So try to stay poised underneath a lot of different solo run situations. You're not dead until you're dead. So medbay allowed me to kind of regroup, figure out what I need to do, and then go from here. So when I spawned into medbay, I knew I had approximately 30 or 40 seconds for my ult to charge. So I want to wait as long as I can before opening that door I already closed. And the reason I closed that door is because there's sentinels on the other side, and if I keep it open, they're going to loop all the way around. So I closed that door to protect myself from them. But, so in this situation, before I open this door, there's still 1 sentinel alive. Luckily, it's just 1 as opposed to 2, because that would have made this infinitely harder. But, so I wait for my ultimate to charge a little bit, and then I open the door before the venom gets too thick. So you'll see that here in a second. So luckily, Soul Survivor is at level 6, so it's going to charge relatively quickly. So the venom's starting to pick up a little bit, and I know as soon as I open this door, this sentinel is just going to be waiting for me. I honestly thought I was going to get blasted as soon as I opened this door, but that was very fortunate. That didn't work. That didn't happen. So there's a sentinel right here. He's not shooting at me. I just hop over this barrier, do a little bit of a maneuvering, and I honestly don't know where he goes the rest of the game. I don't see him until the very, very end. So here's another thing, bait armor. You see how I'm taking so little damage there? Like I said earlier, bait armor, without getting into the percentages, you can look up on your own skill cards. Basically, you take initial damage, and then subsequent damage is less than less, up to 60%. I believe it's up to 60% at level 6. So this doubles as extremely good venom resistance, because it gets to a point where you get enough hits and you get enough venom hits against Clayton, which allows him to essentially that bait armor to be activated. If I don't have bait armor here, there's no way I survive the venom itself long enough to wait and then use my ultimate on these DR1. So skill cards is also critical, and bait armor almost is mandatory with most of these Clayton solo runs. So I'm able to ult like 6 DR1s here, and then I just run to the LZ as best I can. Because I have a little bit of damage here already, bait armor kicks in and I take less than I would have if that was my initial in-bar freeze hit. So 1354 is coming up, so the doors are going to start closing. So as of this point, my thought process is my only hope is it's rejects, because if it's juvies, I don't have anything to kill the juvies. My plan was to use shot grenades combined with holding torque bow to use, to bleed out the juvies or whatever. But it didn't work out, and this is the situation I'm in. So I'm hoping it's rejects. And luckily, it was rejects. So as you'll see here in a second, I'm waiting for enemies to come. I'm not sure where they're at. They're kind of slow for some reason. So there's a bunch of rejects. So when you're dealing with what looks like to be about 15 rejects, and then you got about an additional 6 to 10 DR1s, my goal, and remember, there's still one sentinel. So I'm thinking about all this at once. So my goal right now is to use my enemy's bullets against them. So if I can get the sentinel to shoot at me, incidentally, he'll kill probably every single reject here. If I can get the DR1s to bleed out and explode near the rejects, that'll also kill the rejects as well. And there's such a high volume of them, I need everyone to kill. I kind of need all the, the rejects, the sentinels, and the DR1s. I kind of need them all to kill each other. And that's kind of what I'm doing here. That's why I kind of rotate around them. That way all their bullets can be hitting each other. So you see that here in a second. So I use my ultimate here, which is about 6 seconds long. So I rotate around them. That way they can kill each other. And I believe that gets every single reject and almost every single DR1 in one swoop. So that couldn't have worked perfectly, more perfectly, I should say. And then there's just one straggling reject here at the end. But yeah, that's basically it. The split is probably the toughest solo I've done. Beating out, the paddock on the end for me, but it's easy. It's probably the toughest map to solo, because once you're dealing with sentinels and then the length of the map, it's very, very hard to do. If you have any questions on how to solo this map, number one, you got to have persistence. If you don't have that, then just forget it. You gotta be ready to fail a lot, and you got to be ready to grind this map, because this is a very, very tough map to do. If you're using a character that's not Cole, I should say. But yeah, this was I'm glad I got it done. I'm glad I stuck it out, because it took me a very long time. And but yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think of the video if you have questions. And I'll be able to answer any of them. The Mist is coming out in 2 or 3 days, so just get ready for a solo run for that. Stay tuned for the next video, and you guys have a good one. Peace.